Let me see. How do I do
I'm so sorry. Mark is the worst, or one of the worst magic cards in the history of the game. Oh my god.
that? Yeah. So
He's
as you
this.
guys may have
That
noticed, we
does.
skipped a week of episodes, but we're back, so that's good. These fine gentlemen have been traveling. One of them still is. Mark is possibly climbing the Great Wall as we speak. That's an unconfirmed rumor, so don't take me on that one. Alright, well, you're in the right place now. He does come back tomorrow,
Am I?
so hopefully next week he'll be here again. What did you want to say?
Nothing?
Oh, okay. Alright, so let's get started then. First of all, welcome back to the show. Yeah, this is episode 5 of State of Legacy. Julian, we're going to start with your adventure. You've been traveling recently, so tell us where you went.
So from Thursday last week and from Monday, I went to the Ovinogeddon Eternal Weekend in Milan, in Italy. And for everybody who doesn't know, Ovinogeddon, it's the second largest privately organized Eternal tournament, or actually an entire weekend in all of Europe, after the Bazaar of Moxon.
Right, yeah, because I must admit, like when you told me you were going there, I hadn't actually heard of it before, but I started looking into it, and it's actually a pretty big event. 400 players, so
Even more, yeah.
yeah,
It's
even more
the
than 400
ninth
players.
time they had the tournament.
Yeah,
And I think for Legacy they even had like 400, almost 460 or 70 people.
yeah. I think there's actually a small problem with the sound. I'll try to call you to see if that maybe
Okay.
improves it. Just hang on a sec. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully we can get that sorted.
Okay, let's try again.
All right.
Is it better now?
Yeah, that actually sounds a lot better. So that's
Okay, so it was actually me calling you what caused the problem.
yeah. Hopefully me calling you will be okay. Hopefully my internet can handle it. All right. So yeah, you mentioned you went to the tournament, and what did you end up playing there?
For Legacy, I consider playing Infect, at least for the big Legacy trial, and I even ordered all the cards I would have needed. But the morning I left home to meet up with my friends, I somehow, I don't know, I dropped some envelopes, like actual envelopes, not the card, and I didn't arrive. I arrived without Infect, so I ended up playing Fs in both tournaments and Bugfish in Vintage.
All right. Yeah. So you went back to your trusty elf deck. Did you make any
Yeah.
changes to your list for this event?
No, so for the main deck, there were no changes. I haven't changed the main deck in, I believe, like half a year, and it's always been good to me, and that's why I didn't change it. For the sideboard, I ended up giving in to Miracles, because I feel like the marginal value you get out of additional cards when you put in cards in your sideboard against Miracles is too small to actually matter in such a big tournament, so I ended up cutting a lot of Miracles hate and playing, let's see, 4 Thought Seizes, 2 Cabal Therapies, 3 Abrupt Decays, 2 Pithing Needles, 2 Meat Stones, a Sylvan Library, and an Umusawa's Chitta, which would have been an errata field in the sideboard, and it did really, really well. Like, especially the Meat Stones, they were MVP in lots of games.
All right. So
Not to mention Sylvan Library, which
I mean, if
completely
we
crushed,
just
like all the mid-range decks.
if we just look at like the top 16, like then maybe cutting the Miracles hate was a mistake. But did you actually play against all the Miracles? What were your matchups like?
I only played against Miracles twice over the entire weekend. I guess we just go over my matchups then, so people can know what I actually played against. I made some list. Okay, it's here. So on Friday we had the so-called big legacy trial where I think 90 people showed up, and everybody who made top 8 would get a bye, or even 2 if he went to the finals. So in the very first round, I'm playing against this guy. I didn't really know what he was playing until he cast Living Wish on the second turn, and even then I didn't really know what was going on. So it turns out he was on Chunk Depth, like the Dark Depth combo deck, and yeah, but didn't really work out for him. He Living Wished for Tabernacle, then played Stoneforge on turn 3, then activated Stoneforge on turn 4, put in Better Sky, but then had to sacrifice it to his Tabernacle, and then I just had Reclamation Sage for the Better Sky, and it was turn 5, and he hadn't done a single thing yet, so he didn't really win. After that...
well, sorry to interrupt you there, but I can, yeah, your sound is really really weird. I can also hear it. It's kind of breaks up a bit. I'm not sure why. Did somebody replace your headset while you were gone, or?
No, I didn't change anything.
Somebody says, pause your torrents.
Pause your torrents? I don't have any torrents, right? Let's check. No. Let's quit Spotify. Skype should be on. Skype, the video maybe. Huh?
Yeah, it's probably like it might be a Skype issue. I don't know, because your webcam is also kind of like stuttering a bit.
Okay. What else can I do?
Maybe we should try restarting Skype, and maybe you call me again, see what happens.
Yeah, I will restart Skype.
Yeah, I'll do the same. Sorry for the delay, guys. Some unexpected sound issues here. There was a Skype update yesterday. Maybe that actually screwed it up somehow. I'm not quite sure. Go to voice only. Yeah, maybe. I get to see lovely Skype ads. Let's hide that for now.
Okay, here we go again. So I shut down my iPhone. I shut down my laptop, at least the wireless LAN. So maybe there were some background downloads that I wasn't aware of.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if it's better now. Hopefully, hopefully it is.
Better or worse?
All right. Let's see. I'm from the Netherlands, and Julian is from Germany, so we're from the...
Yeah, that's what you tell to the people, like, you're from the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, but they can't actually tell.
You live on your own secret island in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, I'm secretly planning an invasion of some kind. Alright, well, let's see if it goes better now. If it doesn't, we might have to try to just have audio and no video, but we'll see how it goes now. Alright, so how come you didn't win the tournament? We were all kind of hoping that you would make it.
I don't know what were you actually able to understand from what I said. Did you get my first round against Chunk? Yeah, I guess so. I won the first round of the Legacy trial against Chunk easily. The second round I get paired against Buck Delver, and I take the first game with Wrench on Packmaster that he can't handle. It's a total house. It's like a natural order that's much less of a commitment and harder to stop because you can't neither spell pierce nor Flusterstorm nor Gravedigger's Cage it. In the second game he has 2 Delvers and I have Meekstone. And he makes the strange play of attacking with both Delvers, getting me down to something like, I don't know, 12, and then having no blockers from my elves, so he slowly dies to my elves after having attacked the two divers. I don't
He
really
decided
know
he
what
wants
that.
to turn his delvers into lava spikes and go that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. I mean, he didn't even have reach. I can see I play like this making sense if he has reach, but he even showed me that he sideboarded out the abrupt case, so whatever.
Alright, yeah, I mean,
So
the sound is actually still kind of breaking up. Can you just turn off your webcam for a bit to see if that maybe
okay, let's
improves it?
see. Webcam.
I don't know if it's a connection issue or something else, but it's definitely annoying.
How do I even turn off my webcam? I don't even know. Webcam turn off. Is it turned off now?
No, I can still see you. Okay, now it's turned off.
Now it's turned off, and is it better?
I'm not sure.
We will know in a minute, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just gonna close my browser. Even now I can't see the chat, but I can open it later.
It does sound a bit better now.
Does it really? Oh my god! So I guess something has overloaded my connection tonight. I don't know what.
Alright, well, let's just go like this for now.
Okay, so you're all alone on the cast.
Yeah, well, I have my buddy Great Wall sitting on the left, so I'm all good. Alright, so you mentioned Meekstone. That's a pretty cool sideboard card. Is that primarily for Delver?
Yeah, it's primarily for Delver because Delver is like one of the #1 enemies of elves, and it's really hard, but maybe not really hard to overcome, and you're favored against Bug Delver, but Meekstone gives you so much more breathing room, and that's really cool.
Alright, nice. Alright, so
So
you started out 2-0 then?
yeah, I started out 2-0 and I felt really good, but then I ran into the end boss, which is Miracles, and I unfortunately lost 0-2 to Miracles because even though I had Needle on turn 1 in the second game, he just had Engineered Explosives and cleared up my entire board, so I didn't really get there in that game. I don't actually remember what I played in the next round, but apparently I won because I went 5-2 in the trial.
Apparently.
I'm really not sure. I think it was some kind of dive, and once again he rolled over to Meekstones. In the 5th round, I played against a guy I didn't really know, but a lot of people actually went to him and shook his hand and were like, "Oh my God, you are here!" And apparently he's the administrator of a website called Secret Blogspot. I don't know if you heard of it.
No, that's
It's
never heard of it.
it's some kind of pimp website, and his deck was completely pimped out. He was from Spain, and he was playing OmniClash. I knew about it beforehand, and the matchup is really, really bad. So it didn't really get there. I made one mistake. I didn't Green Sun Sun it for Reclamation Sage when I could, even though it would have done nothing. But I had Wirebot Symbiote on the table, and had he gone for Show and Tell, I could bounce the Sage, put it in with Show and Tell, and then he's down to having either Cunning Wish or Brainstorm into Cunning Wish or Bust.
Oh, that's a really cool play,
yeah. I became aware of it the moment I passed the turn, because I wanted to hold the Senate to have lethal next turn, but I feel like getting the Reclamation Sage and putting him in a 1 turn longer clock would have been much better. But
right, because you could have Crater Hoofed the turn after and just killed him.
Yeah, I could have Crater Hoofed, but yeah, that happens. So, round 6, here's an exercise for you, a quiz. You're on elves. You go first. You play whatever, Death Ray Shaman. Your opponent plays Island Go. You kill him. He doesn't brainstorm or whatever in response. You just kill him.
You kill him on turn 2?
Then, on the play. During sideboarding, yeah, that's pretty cool. Nice. Yeah. During sideboarding, he drops Pyroclasm. And you see Pyroclasm.
He reveals it to you.
When he drops it, he actually drops it. He doesn't reveal it.
Okay,
he drops it while shuffling. And he's Russian, if that matters.
Alright, so is the question what I think he's playing?
What is he playing, and what would you bring in against... Or let's just say, what is he playing?
Alright, so, well, I would have to imagine... Well, you already sideboarded, so you can't really change anything, right, at that point? But...
But I can't change because I haven't presented my deck yet.
Oh, okay, but did he already sideboard, or did he have main deck Pyroclasm?
I can't really tell because he dropped the Pyroclasm while shuffling.
He dropped it after he sideboarded and shuffled?
After sideboarding, yeah.
After sideboard,
Yeah.
right. That sounds like a sneak and show deck to me then. Because that's one of the only decks that has Island and Pyroclasm in the same deck. And it could be some kind of wacko land still deck, but that's... You should not, like, expect that. So, what did it end up being?
So my reasoning was it could be either Sneak Show or maybe Storm, even though Storm usually, if it has an island, it only has a single island or maybe two. I'm not even sure. I think they only have none or one. So he's very unlikely to be on Storm, even though it's a possibility. But I figured like every deck in Legacy that has a basic island and Pyroclasm is weak to discard. Like, even if it's some kind of control deck, whatever.
Yeah.
So I sided in all my discard and the needles, because worst case, he's on Storm and I have needles, and well, okay, that's bad.
Yeah, needles for
Diamond. Yeah, you can try.
Yeah, you can try,
sure
right?
Somebody has fallen for that.
I've done it before when I had like 0 outs. I was like, alright, needle, hope you don't know how it works. Yeah.
People have needled Forcible against me.
Oh, that's
and they were like, yeah, I had to try.
Yeah.
So it turns out he was on Adnesium Tendrils. He actually was on Storm. Yeah. I mean, the only thing I didn't bring in that I should have brought in is... I think I brought in everything. I shouldn't have brought in needles. Yeah, right. So I still won because the discard was really good and he kept a clunky hand and I was able to get there and discard the Pyroclasm. But I felt like it was good to hear from you that you would also put him on not Storm, but...
Yeah. No, Storm is definitely like not very likely. Like, not even all Storm decks actually play Pyroclasm. Some do. Some just play Massacre, which also...
Yeah, I would even assume that if he plays Pyroclasm, he might keep it on board for Burning Wish. So maybe he's playing 2 copies, but I didn't ask him.
Yeah, sure.
So... at this point, I'm 4-2. I'm out of top 8 contention because you gotta be X11 for top 8. So I'm just playing for fun and see what I can do. So for the last round, I check the standings, I check the pairings, I walk to my table, I sit down, I play against this guy who's playing Shardless Buck. I take, I think, a million mulligans, and even though the matchup is pretty good, he eventually gets me with Toxic Deluge and yada yada yada. So I feel like, whatever, man, 4-3, meh. Well, while we are filling out the result slip, a friend of mine who's sitting next to us is like, hey dude, you're filling out the wrong slip. And he's like, no, that's my name. And I'm like, huh, that's strange because my name is on the other slip.
I see.
You know?
So something went wrong.
Yeah, something went wrong. Apparently, neither my opponent nor his opponent showed up. So I just walked to the table. I saw this guy sitting there, and I just naturally assumed, oh, okay, I'm playing against him. So
you both got a bye, but instead you just played against each other.
Yeah, we called a judge and we explained the situation. And so his ruling is that we both get kind of a bye, like,
yeah,
because opponents didn't show up. Even though I believe I should have gotten a game loss. I should have gotten a game loss even though my opponent didn't show up because I sat down at the wrong table. And sitting down at the wrong table and playing usually means at least a game loss. But
right.
Well, I guess it didn't matter. I would have been just made for a much better story to say, yeah, hey, I won 2-1 even though my opponent didn't show up.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's way better. Yeah. Like, I have a much worse story. That's something like that. Like, was at GP Amsterdam. It was a Legacy GP. And I started 3 buys and then I played the 4th round. I'm playing against this Elves guy. And I have him completely locked out. I have like counterband stop and I have modes, which I was playing a blue-white Doctor deck. So he's completely locked out, and then all of a sudden a judge walks up like, alright, stop playing. You've been paired against the wrong guy. Oh no, no, he didn't say it yet. He just said stop playing. So we just stopped playing. He goes away. Like a minute later, he comes back with someone else. He's like, yeah, yeah, you've been paired against the wrong player. You should play against this guy now. So that guy can
He's much better. You should
see
play
my
against
entire
him.
board. He can see that I have caravan stop in play. So he's like, he can already see what I'm playing, and I suddenly have to play against him while I was winning my match. It was like extremely tilting, and then I ended up losing to that guy, of course. So.
Oh man, that's pretty gross.
Yeah.
That's also not very well handled by the judge. The judge should have at least made sure that you don't like reveal your entire deck.
Yeah, that I at least pick up my cards before that guy comes to my table, so he doesn't. Like he kept a hand that was extremely good against me, obviously. So, so yeah.
Oh,
anyway.
Man. So yeah, so that was the first day, the legacy trial. In the top 8, let me recap. What did we have in the top 8? We had some sneak and show guy. We had at least 2 miracles. We had Kai Thiele on Storm. We had Florian Stange, a friend of mine, on Burn. And I believe, oh yeah, 4-color Delver, a friend of Thomas from Prague, who is playing 4-color Delver, or Burg Delver, as we Germans call it.
Mm-hmm.
And he also made top 8 there. Yeah. So for me, I was 10th, and the big thing about this tournament was that the prizes were hilariously bad. Like
really,
even though I like the organizer of Ovinogeddon, and I know him on a personal level now because I talked to him a lot over the weekend. The prizes, it was easily the worst tournament prize-wise I have ever been to. Like no doubts about it. There were 90 people, and everybody paid 20 euros each, so that's 1,800.
Yeah.
Euros. So they only had prices for the top 8, which is okay if the prices are good. But I can only assume that I didn't expect 90 people to show up. And okay, you can't really know, but if you actually see 90 people show up, you really should increase your prices. Because in the end, the top 8 made a split because it was pretty late and they didn't want to play it out. Mm-hmm. So the offer from the trader was 640, like 80 euros for everybody, so 640 euros.
Wow.
And even though that's the trader and not the guy who supplied the cards, I can see that the trader would take a cut for him. So let's say the cards are worth 800 euros. Maybe make it even 900, I don't care. Mm-hmm. That's still like, in the best case scenario, that's 50% of the prize pool that goes into actual cards, into winnings. And
50% of the entry fees, yeah.
Of the entry fees, yeah. And I talked to Stinfo, and he tried to argue that the venue was so expensive and stream and whatever, but you pay the venue and the stream and whatever you have for the entire weekend. And if one tournament has more people showing up than you expect in the first place, you increase prices.
That's the normal thing to do, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to do it. He told me that everything was so expensive. And I can see maybe there was a problem because he had polluted deltas in the prize pool. And he might have purchased them for much more than what they are worth now. But
oh, right. Maybe you already bought them for like, I don't know, $40 and now they're less.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
People were pretty unhappy. When I heard the 80 euro splits, I talked, like, I had several friends in the top 8, and I talked to them, and I told them not to accept it. But what can you do when it's like 2 in the morning, or let's say 1 in the morning, and you want to go home and not play for it?
Yeah,
you pretty much accept it.
I heard something about the tournament starting extremely late as well. What was up with that?
Yeah, that was, I don't know if it's Italy, but I've been to the Ovinogeddon 2 times now. The last time was in 2011, and it was almost as bad. Like, there was this joke that has been going around for years. If Ovinogeddon tells you that the tournament starts at 11, you don't have to show up until the early afternoon. Even though it's a joke, it was actually true. So the main event was supposed to start at 11, which is already pretty late for a tournament of this size. Yeah. Yeah, so we showed up at like 10, and they went through registration, and of course, we didn't start at 11. I think we started at like 11:30 or maybe 11:45 or whatever, like almost midday. And the tournament proceeded okay. I just assume that like over the entire weekend, the big problem, or let's call it a problem in quotation marks, was that probably more people actually showed up to the tournament than they expected, because it was really, really crowded.
Right.
People were standing outside, and even outside it was pretty crowded. So rounds took way longer than they should have. And especially after the third round, there was a big... It wasn't even a crash, it was just a problem with the DCI reporter that produced that almost 2-hour delay between the third and the fourth round.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the metagame, the decks that did well in this tournament. We saw actually a pretty dominant performance from everybody's favorite legacy deck, Miracles. Yeah. What I noticed was that almost all of them, like 4 out of the 5 lists, played 3 Snapcaster Mages main deck. That's a lot of Snapcasting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, if I was to play Miracles, I would probably play the list with Snapcasters and Ponders, because that's what a lot of my friends have been playing and tutoring me about. Like, I was watching Thomas and some other Miracle players, and they explained their choices to me and made really a lot of sense. And even though it's like the easy choice, but at a certain point, you can't really argue against results. Of course, some people are better, some people are worse, there's variance, but the 2 guys that went to the finals, Thomas and Angelo, they actually called this before the tournament. Like, we have a Miracles chat with lots of European Miracle players on Facebook, and like 2 days before the tournament, I think it was Philipp Schöniger, who actually called this exact final. Like, he said, Thomas will meet Angelo in the fucking finals. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not unlikely to top 8 for a good player with a good deck, but fuck this. They both went to the finals with the exact same list.
Yeah.
So that's like, I don't know, that's something you have to acknowledge and you can't close your eyes about.
For sure.
They fucking called it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also, like, it shows you that if you just play this deck a whole lot, like, it gets even better. Like, well, something I said about Miracles is that the deck is actually extremely forgiving. You can almost, like, there are some amazing cards in the deck like Terminus and Jace that really bail you out even if you messed up. But if you can really gain every single small edge of those many decisions every turn, that can, like, get your matchroom percentages just those couple percent higher. That can really, increase the likelihood of you actually winning a tournament with the deck. And also, being able to play fast enough for that many rounds is no small feat either. So yeah, I would personally never play less than 4 Jays, but that's I feel like that's probably a personal preference of mine. Something I want to touch on here is the red elemental blasts, because you should never, under any circumstance, be playing red elemental blast if you're not already playing 4 pyroblasts.
Or pyroblasts, yeah.
There are multiple reasons, but the most important one that actually came up for me this week on my stream, Merfolk is a deck, and Merfolk plays Phantasmal Image. And something that happened this week was that I had an Entreaty Angel, so I had some angel tokens, and my opponent played a Phantasmal Image to copy my angel. So that was a white creature, but I was then able to use Pyroblast on the Phantasmal Image to take it down, while Red Elemental Blast probably would have lost me the game. So, and there really isn't any reason to not have Pyroblast. Like, some people say misdirection, but misdirection can always make the spell target itself, so that argument doesn't really
No,
fly.
spells can't target themselves.
No, I mean, the misdirection can make the Pyroblast or the Red Elemental Blast target the misdirection. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, you can make the Pyroblasts targeted, but like when you choose a permanent, you can't change the mode of the spell, so you can't make it target. Like, there's a very fringe scenario where Red Elemental Blast could be better than Pyroblast, but I agree, like, the Phantasmal Image is big enough to warrant playing the Pyroblasts. I actually don't know why they are playing the 2-1 split in favor of the Red Elemental Blast. I mean, yeah, Meddling Mage, whatever, and I can see, like...
The winner actually had 3 Red Elemental Blasts, just 0 Pyros. Second person had, like, the split, but yeah. Yeah, somebody said it's harder to misdirect when you target a permanent. That's true. But the only deck like that plays misdirection is probably Sneak and
Sneak attack.
Show.
Yeah.
So I guess if Sneak Attack has Jace in play and you want to Red Elemental Blast it, then that could come up. That Pyroblast could be worse. But yeah, I would always play Pyroblast, especially something else that might come up later. Like if you're gonna play Delve cards like Dig Through Time or Treasure Cruise, you can just like discard your Pyroblast for 1 mana if you want to.
Yeah, but you can just pay the mana you paid for casting the Pyroblast into
Well,
the
but you
Delve.
can go like end a turn, discard it, and then your next turn,
Oh yeah,
maybe you have enough.
it's like
I don't know.
like a bad mana battery.
Yeah,
Charge it end of turn and then use it for Delve.
exactly. Alright, well, moving on from Miracles, something that really stood out to me was how much Esper Blade there was. There were 5
True.
Esper Blade decks in the top 16, which is really like pretty extraordinary. Like if you look at the recent tournaments, especially the SCGs, it's like hasn't been that much Esper Blade anymore. It kind of fell off, but here it showed up big. So, do you think? What do you think the reason for that is?
Honestly, I think it's pretty hard to tell. I mean, one of the things I can see that contributed to Esper Blade doing well is that Esper Blade has pretty much a not very strong mana base. Like I even remember watching the top 16. This one guy playing against a friend of mine, and he fetched, and my friend made a joke about him fetching Savannah now, and he actually fetched Savannah in Esper Blade. So.
Yeah.
Overall, the Esper decks, they don't really have a very good mana base, but stuff like Miracles and Elves don't really punish mana bases at all. Like, okay, there's this one weird build with Blood Moon out of Elves, but let's keep that aside because that's very rare these days. But Miracles, if you're not playing Blood Moon, and most people don't, especially not back to basics, you can't really do anything about their greedy mana base. They can do whatever they like, and if the cards play well, like Esper Blade has this Esper Blade and Deathblade have both the stigma of being the 45% deck. But if you play well and cards play well, and you don't lose to your own mana base,
You can
I
get up
can
to
see
50.
some getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, but
Unfortunately, we don't know the meta breakdown.
yeah, something. I mean, I've actually streamed a match with Deathblade this week, and something that came up like what this deck really does is it has a lot of situational cards. I feel like Thoughtseize, Spell Pierce, the removal spells, and like if you draw the right cards at the right time, this deck is amazing. But if you don't, like if you draw a Thoughtseize or the hand's already empty, or like a Spell Pierce in the late game, then it's like really bad. So I feel like you have to run above average with this deck to really do well. But then again, there are a lot of powerful cards in the deck, so you can definitely just win games because of that. How do you feel True Name Nemesis is positioned right now?
I never really felt that True Name Nemesis had as big of an impact on Legacy as people assumed.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, apparently, it is doing well in these decks. And I mean, it requires Miracles to either have Terminus or a Lethal Entreat the Angels. So it's not the worst card against them, even though it's not particularly good.
Yeah,
But
it's good at fighting Jace at least, and it does require an answer on its own. So it's.
yeah.
I feel like the card is only truly bad in combo matchups, and in all the other matchups it's pretty reasonable. Especially if you can play it on turn 2. I guess that's one of the biggest appeals of this deck. To go turn 1 Shaman, turn 2 either Liliana or True Name. I mean that's pretty powerful actually. So I mean this deck showed up quite big. The version that's on your screen right now actually has a Singleton Treasure Cruise in the main deck. It feels like just like a random mid to late game value card to kind of like restock. I kind of like that actually. I can respect having one of those. Maybe 2 of those is like the max you can go. Well, there is some tension with Deathrite Shaman, of course. If you want to remove your stuff, then you also lower your delve count. So, but that's not that big of an issue, I feel. Yeah, speaking of True Name Nemesis, there was also a Merfolk deck in the top 8. Did you get to look at that list?
I took a look at the list, but I don't really have it on my screen right now because I didn't want to open the browser.
Oh, right.
But I think it's the same guy who like top 8'd a lot of European Legacy tournaments with Merfolk recently, isn't it?
It's Alexei Romanchuk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing
Yeah,
it right.
he looked very familiar. His name sounded familiar, and I think he might have. Did he top 8 Grand Prix Strasbourg with Merfolk? Could have.
I can't remember. One thing I noticed about this deck is that it's playing Aether Vial, but it doesn't have Wasteland, which I found kind of odd, since those two go so well together. I guess he just wants. He's playing. His mana base is 13 Island, 4 Cavern of Souls from Mutavault. So he has a lot of blue sources. So it seems he just favors casting spells over potentially denying the opponent. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I guess that's a change that a lot of Merfolk players have made recently. They dropped the Wastelands. Like this trend even started when Cavern of Souls first came into the meta, because like the mana base was already super bad, and now adding Cavern of Souls to it, you had to cut something, because in the end you would have ended up with like, I don't know, 8 actual islands in a deck that wanted double blue all of the time.
Endless days, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of them have cut the Wastelands for Mishra's Factories to go for the 8 manlands to fight against miracles. But this deck actually only has 4 manlands and 0 Wastelands. That's why I found it so unusual. It actually has 17 blue sources, which is really high historically compared to the other lists. But I mean, it obviously worked out for him, so maybe this is actually where you want to be.
By the way, I just checked. He actually top 8'd Grand Prix Strasbourg last year. I remembered.
With Merfolk
correctly.
as well?
Yeah.
Did you have his list there?
Yeah, I can send you the link on Skype.
Well, if you just tell me what the mana base is compared to what he plays.
Okay, let's check them out. Oh, there's this guy, there's Thomas. Oh, he was actually first in this list, apparently. Okay, the mana base was 12 islands, 4 Mutavaults, 4 Wastelands.
Alright, so there he played 12 blue sources. And now he's up to 17, so maybe it's because True Name is another double blue spell that makes him want to have more blue sources. It's entirely possible.
Yeah, I can only imagine it being the worst feeling in the world, sitting there with 3 lands and not being able to cast your True Name.
Yeah, or your Lord, or really anything like that. I like the 2 Dismembers main deck. I like that a lot. Just having some answers, not just try to goldfish against your opponent. Alright, well, now we're going to move on to a list that has actually some of the Delve cards. There was a High Tide list in the top 8. Chuckis, this one is for you. High Tide is still doing well. Moving along from the fact that he's for some reason playing less than 4 Ponders, which hurt my eyes a little bit. There are 2 Dig Through Times in the deck. Do you think that card makes his deck better, or is it kind of the same?
I saw it in action, and it was really great. Like, really, really good. Because it adds another card to the deck that you somehow really want to counter, but you eventually end up with so many cards you want to counter, like every Time Spirit, every High Tide, every Dig Through Time, every maybe even End of Turn Meditates. If you're a grindy deck, you don't really want them to resolve, but what can you do? You just have to let them resolve. So it feels like the deck is pretty good. You just have to pay attention to what you're removing from the deck graveyard, because like you're gonna shuffle those cards back into your library later on. So be aware to not like remove too many Cunning Wishes or Force of Wills if you're playing against another deck that plays Force of Will. But other than that, I like the 2 of. Yeah, I definitely do.
I mean, obviously there's the tension with Time Spiral shuffling your entire graveyard back. but usually this deck should be able to refill it really fast using all the cheap cantrips. I like it. I definitely think it's a lot better than Treasure Cruise in this particular deck.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Do you think they should maybe be playing one of them in the board, or is that getting too cute as a wish target? Or is it Blue Sun Zenith just going to be better most of the time?
He doesn't really have a lot of like card draw value cards in the board outside of Meditate and Blue Sun Zenith, and I guess you go from. I mean, you could replace Meditate in the sideboard, but the dig through time is more situational, and
Yeah.
Meditate is pretty good against most of the grindy decks. So
Yeah, you kind
I
of
think
have
I like the setup.
like when you're choked on mana, you get Meditate, and when you have all the mana in the world, you get Blue Sun. And Dig Through Time would sort of maybe fit in the small situational gap between those two, but it's probably not worth a full sideboard slot, like you said. Yeah, 16. Somebody asked if 16 lands normal. It is normal. It's because it plays so many one-mana cantrips that it can really just keep making land drops by playing a cantrip every turn. All right. By the way, on the top right of your screen, you can see the meta game of this event and also of the other events that we're about to talk about. Let's move on to a greener tournament, Star City Games Legacy Open in Indianapolis, where elves actually kind of dominated. Julian, do you have any comments on that?
The tournament wasn't really streamed at all. I just got on Twitter and somehow the news quickly spread. Oh my God! Did you check the top 8? Did you check the top 4? And everybody was like, "Oh my God, elves all the way!" And
Yeah.
what can I say? I kind of liked it. I was really happy for all the people who made it. It's like 16 Gaia's Cradle and only 4 Westlands. It's 16 Elfish Visionary and 8 Brainstorms. What the fuck, man?
Clearly, Elfish Visionary is better than Brainstorm, so we can take away from this event, I feel.
Yeah, we're waiting for Miracles to splash Elfish Visionary now, because you can recycle it on the terminus.
That is pretty sick. Put it on the bottom, play it again. Man. Yeah, the reason I have the second place list on the screen here, which is a list by John Johnson, is because this is like, all the lists are pretty standard except this one. It has 2 Llanowar Elves main deck, which is 1 or 2 more than what we usually see. But the spiciest thing about this list is the Energy Storms in the sideboard. I had to look this card up because I had not seen it before. Have you seen this card before, Julian, or is this also a new one?
I've seen it before. People talked about it as a solution to both Burn and Delver, which is quite interesting. But I have never tried it myself.
Alright, so basically what it does is that spells that deal direct damage don't deal damage anymore. And creatures with flying don't untap. I imagine that part is not really important. But
well, it's for Delver.
It is for Delver, right, okay. So, I mean, it is mostly just like anti-pyroclasm, or?
Well, I would say it's like well, you can't really say anti-Canadian Crusher because it eats so much mana, but it's obviously pretty good against Burn in the first place.
Yeah.
And then, I never thought about Pyroclasm because you don't really see a lot of Pyroclasms lately, but I would also cite it in probably against most Delver decks that also play Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, it does stop Delver and
I don't know about 3 copies. Because you're still... When you spend all your mana on the upkeep, the ground creatures might still be a problem for you. So I pretty much believe it's a dedicated hate card for Burn that has some splash damage on other matchups.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it too. And like you said on a previous episode, Burn is kind of a 50-50, so having something that kind of just completely hoses them out seems pretty good if you're concerned about winning that matchup. So yeah, I don't know, maybe expected the least amount of Burn. Maybe it's better against Delver than we think it is. So who knows? Yeah, so 4 Elves decks in the top 4. But if you look at the full top 16 picture, then and you can see that there's also some other decks like Miracles, as usual, Death and Texas, and a couple of Delver decks. Kind of the usual suspects there. But yeah, all the Elves decks spiking to the top was definitely surprising. Well, not surprising. We've been talking about how good Elves is on pretty much every episode now, and it was only a matter of time before they were going to dominate the tournament, right? So I guess it happened.
Yeah.
Then also from the same tournament, from the same, was it also in the top 8? Yeah, there was a Maverick deck in the top 8, which I wanted to talk about. Somebody in the chat earlier pointed out that Galactique had gotten a lot better due to the new Delph cards, and also just being a great card against Miracles, which has been dominating. Yeah, it's a shame we don't have Mark here to talk about the difference between Maverick and Death and Texas. But do you think Maverick is could be a better deck now in the new metagame?
Well, I never really felt like Maverick was as bad as people made it. If you had a lot of hate for Miracles in sideboard, but I mean the problem for Maverick traditionally has been, why would you play it if you could just play a Replicate and a Threat Shaman instead?
Yeah, well, it is playing the Threat Shaman, but
yeah, so this is pretty much what we've seen lately, the so-called Dark Maverick that splashes red, black for the Threat Shaman as persecution on the board, and maybe even discard to shore up the usually rather bad combo matchup.
Right.
So to me, a deck like that, I'm not surprised to see it doing well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the key differences between this and Death and Texas is the threat density. Because this deck doesn't play Aether Vial, it gets to play more creatures. And some of those are mana creatures, but because the mana creatures are Death Threat Shamans, they're still real threats. So the advantage of Maverick, I feel, is that the threat density is higher. But the disadvantage is that you lose the Rashad and Port, so your mana denial plan is worse. You do get Knight of the Reliquary, which can wasteland every turn. But people love basic lands, so that's not necessarily a reliable strategy. So yeah, it's kind of a trade-off. Your mana denial is worse, your threat density is higher, and you get some powerful green cards.
Yeah, Sylvan Library,
like
Galactique, I guess.
Sylvan Library. Yeah, and a green Sun Zenith toolbox. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, Galactique. If Galactique is good, then this deck, maybe it should be playing more Galactiques, honestly, even though it's legend. And I also
I wouldn't mind that.
You wouldn't mind more Galax? Do you still play him in Elves as well?
No, I never. I think last time I played Galactique in Elves was like, I don't know, a year ago, maybe even longer. Actually, 1.5 years ago.
All right, fair enough. I guess he's just not worth the white splash by himself.
Yeah, that's pretty much the main reasoning, that it's not worth, and it also cuts off your Senates and natural orders. So I don't really love it. No.
Yeah, I mean,
you want it against combo, and against combo you need the quick kill. And I think I don't want to bore our listeners or viewers with this, because I've talked about this a lot. But I feel like Galactique prevents you from having the quick kill against combo, and they still get to dig for an answer. So I don't really like it in Fs.
That makes sense. Something I can't really get over is that there's only 2 Stoneforge Mystics in the deck. I think Stoneforge Mystic is the best creature in Legacy right now, and
what?
If you're playing white, you don't agree with that? All right. Well, I don't know.
Well,
I think
Death Threat Champ is the best creature in all of Magic, like of all times.
In all of Magic, a bold statement.
Yeah.
A bold statement indeed. No, but like Mystic is just, it's a 2-for-1 for 2 mana. That's like not a lot of creatures actually are 2-for-1 for that little mana. So like most other creatures just trade 1-for-1 with removal.
That's true.
But Mystic always puts you ahead no matter what happens. And yeah, it's maybe I'm too much of a fan of the card, but it also gives you so many free wins. Anyway, I can definitely understand why there aren't more in this deck. Like preferring the more of the Greens and Zenith and Thalia package instead. It's a trade-off. Anyway, moving on to the other SCG tournament that was actually on camera, SCG New Jersey. We saw a pretty cool blue-red Delver deck taking first place there, with the full 4 Treasure Cruises main deck. Did you see any of the coverage?
I saw the entire coverage, and it really looked very, very strong. And I didn't personally talk to Bob, but a friend of mine talked to him, and he seems very, very like convinced of the what's it called, Treasure Cruise. Like he feels
Yeah.
like Treasure Cruise is here to stay, and it's gonna be used by everyone who realizes its potential until all the other people come on board and either hate it or ban it or whatever. But Bob's opinion on this is that you really want to take advantage of the Treasure Cruise while you can. He
Yeah,
really makes it
for
feel
sure.
like it's the next, I don't know, mental misstep or whatever.
Yeah, and this is like one of the best possible shells for it. I was extremely impressed because this is what you could call a week 1 deck. It's the first week of the new format, and for to for there to be such an incredibly streamlined list on the first week, that I did not expect that. That was very impressive to me. Because usually people like mess around with these cards, just putting in random decks, and it doesn't get all that tuned yet. But this looks like a list that is here to stay. It looks really well designed, and from what I've also seen after this tournament of this deck being played and playing against it, I'm pretty impressed. I think this is a new tier 1 deck for sure. And then kind of the unexpected card from Khans, which many people didn't really talk about, was the Monastery Swift Spear in the 1-drop slot. What is your impression of that card?
Well, I kind of missed it when I was looking at the spoilers and everything. I was like, yeah, whatever, 1 mana, 1/2, we get that all the time.
Yeah,
But it looked kind of strong when I watched him play, even though I still don't know. Let's say I actually ordered it. I don't really order cards a lot because I want to try the deck.
yeah,
And like I can only say what I saw. What I saw was really good, and I still didn't get used to this card being as good as it was. But like dropping this and then just playing, I don't know, Protecting Probe into Ponder and maybe even another guy, but no, another guy, non-creature, okay. But even then, if you play Protecting Probe into Ponder, that's like 3 power of attackers, and you didn't do anything for it yet,
yeah. Like you're
and
already
you still
playing
get to
these
fill your
cantrips.
graveyard for Treasure Cruise. That's actually quite cool. You wanna cast a lot of spells for the Swift Spear, and because you cast a lot of spells, your Treasure Cruises get easier. So I kind of like that attraction.
Yeah, you want to cast spells, flip your Delver, or spells that make Pyromancer tokens. It sort of all works towards the same
Yeah.
goal of just playing a lot of cheap spells every turn. The winner compared this card to Tarmogoyf in his winner's interview. I think that might be a little over exaggerated, but this guy hitting for 3 a turn is pretty standard. So I'm convinced. At first I was skeptical when you compare him to Goblin Guide, but Goblin Guide combined with Daze is already kind of awkward, and this guy is also more reliable in the late game. I feel like
Mhm.
because he doesn't have that same drawback basically. Because people have brainstorms and tops, so to actually get value of Goblin Guide pretty well. So I don't know. I like this card.
Yeah, opponent has top Goblin Guide is, oh my god, it's the worst. You hate it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And then the sideboard is also like pretty spicy, and you can see how much respect has been given to elves in this list here, with 2 Forked Bolts in the main deck, and Chain Lightning and 4 Lightning Bolts, of course. And then in the sideboard, he also gets 2 Grim Lavamancer's and a Grafdigger's Cage. To really
Two
like
graphic sketches.
2 Grafdigger's Cages, yeah. So I feel like his main deck is already pretty decent against elves, and then he also brings in 4 additional cards, which are just really strong. So I don't know. I don't really see Well, the one weakness I see for this list is Storm combo. The Storm matchup for this deck is abysmal. It only has 8 counterspells, 4 of which are dazes, and 0 wastelands to go along with those dazes. So this deck is probably like 2080 against Storm. But that's really the only matchup I could think of that is really weak, and everything else this deck seems to have a pretty good plan for. So yeah, like I said, I'm impressed with this deck.
I guess Chant could be okay against it with punishing fire, I guess, but
yeah,
it doesn't really have a lot of good outs to a big Tarmogoyf.
No, punishing fire and Tarmogoyf were probably problematic cards. I didn't really think about Jund because I don't think Jund is tier 1. But
yeah, neither do I.
In the right metagame, Jund could be tier 1. So I don't know. That's a good point. Okay, so moving on to another deck from this tournament. We have Manaless Dredge in 3rd place. Now, if you're not familiar with Manaless Dredge, this is a deck without lands, and you always want to be on the draw, because your first turn of the game is going to be draw a card, discard a Dredger, and pass the turn. And then you go from there. So, it's a really anti-magic deck, but I mean, some people really like it. What do you think about Manaless Dredge?
Honestly, I think Manaless Dredge is bad. It's tier 2 at best. It's never been better. Like, okay, during the Mental Misstep era, when it was developed, maybe it was better back then. But if you ask me, it's really bad. It's incredibly bad. And that doesn't mean that it can't top 8 or even 3rd place a tournament like this. And I remember 2 weeks ago we even talked about how Graveyard Hate is really underplayed right now. And so it doesn't really surprise me that it gets there. But I like to put it the way a guy I played at Grand Prix Paris put it. He sat down, and I knew he was playing Manaless Dredge, and he knew that I was playing Elves. So he sat down and he said, my deck is pretty good, but it has one weakness. And I was like, yeah, what's the weakness? He said, it loses to good players. So I told him, okay, you got a problem. He was like, yeah. I know.
And you were like, alright, you can play first.
I actually made him play first, yeah. Let me remember. I don't remember if I actually won the Dyro button in the second game, but yeah, whatever. I think Manaless Dredge is really bad against Elves. I've never lost a single match against Manaless Dredge with Elves because you can grind them out very, very well. It's when Mercus has the tools, it's also not very good against Mercus because what you do is find rest in peace, Terminus, and then the game's over.
Yeah, they don't really have a way to come back from hate cards once they're in play. Like it has Sickening Shoal to kill a creature-based hate card, like maybe Shaman or something, or Scouting Goose, but something like even like a Grafdigger's Cage, it's already game over, you know. Like something as simple as a Grafdigger's Cage already kills this deck on the spot, 0 outs. So it's really.
I also feel. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're not afraid when you play this deck. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I also feel that Blightsteel Colossus is really not needed in this deck. It's just there to prevent yourself from decking, and that's not how you want to play the deck. Like, oh my god, I went through my entire deck, and if I could only reshuffle my graveyard, or at least some cards, I would win. No, it's not how it works.
No. If you went through your entire deck and they're not dead, something went horribly wrong. So.
Yeah. There was this interesting situation where the Reanimator guy, I think in the semis, had Elesh Norn in play. And they were wondering, okay, can this guy still beat Elesh Norn? So the commentators went through the hypothetical scenario of the Reanimator guy still playing Show and Tell for some reason, and then Manaless Dredge puts in play of the Hatebound, which immediately dies, but comes back as a 3-1. And then the Miracles player plays another Show, and the Reanimator player plays another Show and Tell, because why not? And then you put in Blightsteel Colossus, and then it is Infect, but because of Elesh Norn, it still doesn't kill your opponent. So I would have loved to see that, but it didn't.
Pretty far-fetched right there. Yeah, I don't know. I also think like Manaless Dredge was originally designed to to fight against Mental Misstep, because Mental Misstep could counter all your discard outlets. So you would just sidestep that by just not having any discard outlets and just like draw, discard, go. But now that Mental Misstep has been gone for so long already, like, why wouldn't you just play mana? It's just as fast, if not faster, because of Breakthrough, and you can actually beat hate cards sometimes. So I don't know. Alright, one more deck from this tournament, which was a, well, let's say Bug Delver. Let's not say Sultai Delver just yet. It's by Stephen Mann. There was also a list by Gerard Fabiano, who was in 6th place. And it also has Treasure Cruise in it. So it's essentially just Bug Delver, but he has 2 Treasure Cruises and a spicy number Sultai Charm. Do you know what Sultai Charm does?
It's an instant that destroys a mono-color creature, an artifact or an enchantment, or it loots for 2, I believe.
Yeah.
No, it loots for 2 and you discard 1.
Yeah, draw 2, discard 1. Yeah. So I think he commented on how poor that card was for him, but it does a lot of things. Let's say that. It also costs a lot of mana, so I don't know. Compared to something like a Maelstrom Pulse, I don't know how well this stacks up, but it is a card you can play, and you probably just wanted to try it out, if I had to guess. The Treasure Cruises, though, are pretty interesting. I feel like those are probably pretty solid in this deck, especially with Liliana of the Veil. Just discard some cards and then play an Ancestral Recall. That seems pretty good. What do you think about those?
Yeah, I definitely like them.
Alright.
That's nothing more I can say. I completely underestimated the impact of Treasure Cruise, but after seeing it in action several times now, I really feel like the card is strong, like very strong.
Yeah.
And in a tempo share like this that tends to play a lot of stuff early on, then also has the kind of mid-game plan of relying on Liliana for some turns. Treasure Cruise seems incredibly strong.
I do agree. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. So now that we've discussed all the 3 tournaments, the Ovinogeddon, the Stars Games Indianapolis, and Stars Games New Jersey, let's combine that all those top 16 results, to see what the Legacy metagame is like if we just look at those 3 tournaments. And then we arrive at the following top 5 decks. Miracles is in 1st place, which is 23% of the finishes. That's really high. That's almost 1/4. Elves is in 2nd place. I'm sure you'll be happy about that one, with 15% of all the top 16 finishes. Followed by a tie between Delver. I just combined all the Delver decks for this particular graph. So Bug Delver, Rug Delver, Jeskai Delver, whatever. All the Delver decks together, Jetski Delver, make up 13%, as well as Astroblade. I feel like Astroblade is a bit overrepresented here because there were 5 of them at Ovinogeddon, but I mean it's still 13% of all the finishes. So, and then in 5th place, kind of like a big gap. There we have a tie between Death and Taxes and Show and Tell decks at only 6%. So really the big 4 right now, what it seems to be, are Miracles, Elves, Delver, and Stoneforge Mystic Blade decks. Yeah, I mean not really a big surprise there. You think?
Outside of Blade, I think that's what we pretty much could expect. Maybe there should be some more Storm, but we didn't really see a lot, at least in the US lately. So yeah, that's what's putting down the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be unhappy to play Storm in this particular metagame. I'm actually probably going to try playing it a bit soon. But yeah, Miracles 23%. That's really high for Legacy. I mean, Legacy is probably the most diverse format in Magic right now. Has been always. And usually when a deck dominated, it was maybe maybe 10%, maybe 20%, but 23%, that's kind of alarming to be how dominant that deck really is. And yeah, that's something you have to always keep in mind when you're gonna show up to a Legacy tournament. What is my plan against Miracles? Because you better have a plan, otherwise you're gonna lose. So yeah, just food for thought there. Okay, well, you said you underestimated Treasure Cruise. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Do you think Treasure Cruise will spawn any new archetypes? Like, we've seen the card now in a Delver deck and in another Delver deck. Those are existing decks. Do you think there's going to be like a new dedicated Treasure Cruise deck that fully takes advantage of that card, or is this it?
Yeah, that's what I initially predicted. That I felt like there was no deck in Legacy that was actually ready to just randomly adopt Treasure Cruise, and I feel what Bob played in New Jersey already kind of goes into that direction, even though, of course, we had blue-red Delver before, like Delverburn. But I really believe, like, as we talked about before, that this is the shell that you want to be playing in a deck that wants to abuse Treasure Cruise. Don't mind about playing early, lots of spells early on, dazing here, dazing there, whatever you want to do. Just fill the graveyard, get value, like marginal values everywhere, and then just take over the game with 1 or 2 Treasure Cruises.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually, Tuesday on my stream, I was brewing a bit together with the chat for decks like this. But it's actually not so easy, because first you need like lots of stuff to put in your graveyard. We even tried playing Thought Scour at some point, like just to go all the way. But then you also need something to actually draw into, because if you just Treasure Cruise into more cantrips, you're not really accomplishing anything yet. So you also need to have a plan to actually kill them. And I mean, that could be Delver, or it could be Jace, or I mean, it could be anything, but it's not easy to construct a deck like that. There's a lot of factors that come in, so I don't know. And what about Dig Through Time? Do you think that card fills a similar role, or is that more of a combo card? Because it digs for pieces.
It feels much more like a combo card, because when you're playing a tempo deck, or especially when you're playing, let's say, a mid-range deck like Chartless Bug or whatever, most of your cards are good. But when you're playing a combo deck, getting to choose 2 cards from your top, I don't know, 7 or 8, that's really good. But in a mid-range, a creature-based deck, just drawing additional cards is already pretty good by itself. So I think that the Dig Through Time is this has more appeal for combo decks and less for the tempo decks or mid-range decks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like actually I was reading the Miracles topic on Entity to Source earlier, and somebody said like in Miracles, Dig Through Time is actually probably better than Treasure Cruise for multiple reasons. One of the very cool reason is that it doesn't technically draw any cards. So after you play a Dig Through Time on their turn, you could still play a Miracle after that. So that's pretty cool.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. Yeah. So like if you top and there's no miracle, then you Dig Through Time to effectively mill yourself for 7. Also get 2 cards in your hand as a side effect, and then maybe you can top again, and maybe there will be a miracle. I don't know. I feel like it's not very good, because when you play miracles, you already have a lot of awkward draws. You know, there are a lot of cards that when they're in your opening hand, they're terrible. Like if you have counterbalance in your opening hand, and when you don't have top, it's terrible. Jace is not great in your opening hand because it won't do anything for the first 3 turns. And Treat or Terminus are already bad in your opening hand. So if you would add another card that's bad in your opening hand, like Dig Through Time, I mean, you could get some extremely awkward draws. So there are definitely risks involved if you want to try to make this happen. And you might have to cut down, maybe replace some number of Terminus with Supreme Verdicts if you try to do that, just to have less awkward cards in your opening hand effectively.
Yeah, I guess
Anyway,
that's exactly the reason why most Miracles players shy away from the card. Even though it could be good in the deck, as you mentioned, it would just add another thing that's very clunky,
yeah,
and at a certain point you can't really support that. And if you card actual business cards, let's say Terminus or Entreat or Chase, you will end up not getting what you want because there's less juice in your deck. And even though you might have like more card advantage and the card even allows you to filter, there's still less stuff in your deck. And
yeah.
that to me that's already a problem with Miracles, that the more good cantrips or whatever you add, you're slowly bleeding out actual substance. And that could be an issue if you add even more of this kind of cards.
For sure, yeah. I do agree with that entirely. But I mean, people are going to test it, and I mean, I don't think it's good enough in Miracle specifically. But if you would play one of the two Delve cards, then I would feel it would have to be Dig Through Time, and not Treasure Cruise. Alright, then looking at it from another perspective, what are there any cards in Legacy that are getting better because people are playing these Delve cards? For example, something like Graveyard Hate, maybe, or
Rest in peace, yeah.
Rest
Definitely.
in Peace, yeah. So
I mean, for some decks, Rest in Peace has been on the verge of being main deck ever, and people have played main deck Rest in Peace and Miracles last year. I think it's Strasbourg, a lot of people did.
yeah,
And I don't know if I would do it, but I can very well see it being good. Maybe I don't know if it is, but it's worth trying.
right. But for example, if you look at Bob Huang's Delver list, you wouldn't sideboard Rest in Peace against him, right? Because all he
No,
has is
definitely
Treasure
not.
Cruises. So, but when somebody plays maybe Tarmogoyf and Treasure Cruise in the same deck, like that Bug Delver list we saw earlier, then suddenly Rest in Peace becomes extremely attractive because it's gonna blank potentially up to 12 cards in their deck at the cost of one card. So, and even when they decay it, they've already lost their graveyard, which is certainly not irrelevant. Another card that came to mind for me was Notion Thief,
Oh yeah.
because that card was already like pretty playable, mostly in the sideboard. But if people are trying to sorcery speed draw 3 cards, I mean, maybe you just gotta steal them, you know. So I think that card might actually be better now. So if you're playing a legacy deck that has blue and black in it, consider Mr. Notion Thief maybe in the sideboard to
It's
fight.
also pretty it's also pretty good against elves because elves can't really remove it because it's 4 mana.
Hmm.
And decks like Bug always had the problem of being like of losing the grindy war against elves. If the game goes long, the visionary and symbiote combo usually gets you because it's just that good. But once you get Notion Thief and elves not being able to remove it, and maybe you have some sort of grafting cage that they usually bring in, the matchup actually becomes harder for elves, like definitely
Yeah,
harder.
yeah, for sure. And even though he can't ever attack because he'll just straight with anything, it's still like it's effectively a meddling mage on Glimpse and Elvish Visionary at the same time, and that's really good. So that's yeah, that's definitely a good point. It's also great against elves. So yeah, maybe it's time for some more Notion Thieves in Legacy. Who knows?
Maybe even Spirits of the Labyrinth. I know that Thomas Ingevoldsen recently got back into playing more Legacy,
Hmm.
and he mentioned that his future build of Death and Texas will have at least one, maybe even more copies of Spirit of the Labyrinth.
Yeah,
So maybe we'll see more of this card as well.
that's a great point. Yeah, unfortunately we don't have Mark here to ask if he's gonna play it in his Texas deck, but that is another card that hates on the draw, and that's something that just becomes more valuable. The downside of this is that it's a 3/1 without flash, so it's very vulnerable to the fork bolts and chain lightnings and stuff that are in the blue-red
Yeah,
Delver deck. Sorry, just got distracted there for a second. So yeah, I don't know, but Mother of Runes can do some great work there too. So
yeah.
it's
And on the other hand, the upside is pretty big. Like,
Absolutely.
whiling it in response to a brainstorm is already super strong. And if they burn it, okay, they burned it. Whatever, man. So they didn't burn another creature. They
Yeah,
still have to pay mana for that, and it's not that bad. On the other hand, if it works, it's awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I said it didn't have flash, but with Aether Vial, of course, the man, those Skype commercials. I'll just turn it off. With Aether Vial, of course, does have flash sometimes, so that's definitely good. And also something like Deathrat Shaman, just eating a card from your opponent's graveyard every turn just became a little bit better because they might be delving and they might be getting hurt more than it looks like. So yeah, maybe we'll get to see more exciting brews with these new cards as we move forward. For now, they're mostly just being fit into existing decks. Maybe somebody will actually come up with something awesome. That's really a new deck, but that'll have to be well, for the next time maybe. Then I want to talk about the Jeskai Ascendancy. Have you
Oh man.
have you seen that deck in action yet?
Yes. I didn't play Modern at Ovino. I played Legacy and Vintage. By the way, because somebody asked, I went 7-2 in the Legacy main event. That was good for, I think, 36th place. I was tied with 17th place because they had to cut a round because, I don't know, the Swiss finished at like 1 in the morning and then there was still like top 8s. So they decided to cut a round and I couldn't really improve, so my tiebreakers were really bad and I didn't get a better placement, but whatever. But in Modern, the Chetsky Ascendancy or whatever, this card really feels like busted. I have no idea what they actually thought when they printed the card because the combining it with mana creatures and cantrips, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. It's so
Yeah,
obvious.
yeah,
And
absolutely. Everybody,
untapping all your creatures, what the fuck, man? And growing all your... I really have no clue what I thought when they printed. Given I'm not a very experienced Modern player, and maybe Modern will adapt to it, but already now I know that some people will not come to our monthly Modern tournament in Nuremberg because they think that this deck will be everywhere and it's just so busted that they don't want to play Magic.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been playing that on my stream in Modern. It was ridiculous. There are hate cards against it, but I thought with 7 Ascendancies in the main deck, as well as 5 regrowths, I feel like it's really resilient. But I actually wanted to talk about the Legacy version of the deck, which we brewed up on my
Oh,
stream. It's on your screen right
okay.
now. It's pretty spicy. We've played a couple games with this deck, and well, jumping ahead to the conclusion is that it's definitely not as good as other Legacy combo decks. It has some similarities to Elves that you're reliant on mana creatures to do anything, but unlike Elves, when your main combo plan gets disrupted, this deck can't really do anything. Like, you're not going to kill anybody by attacking with a Noble Hierarch, so it
Well,
feels like a more explosive but overall weaker version of Elves. So I would not recommend playing this if you just want to win a tournament. But there are certain cool things going on here. There's I mean, at first I had treasure cruisers in the deck, but we quickly found out that those weren't needed at all, because Sensitive Dividing Top is actually completely absurd with the Ascendancy.
oh yeah, it
Because
untaps all your guys again,
yeah,
right?
so you play the top and then it's free, and then you draw a card, and then you play another cantrip. You draw the top again, you play that again, draw it again, and as soon as you find the 2 tops, you're infinite.
You can go
You
infinite.
just don't
Oh
loot
man.
anymore with the Ascendancy, and you just pump your guys up to the
Helm
max
of Awakening combo all again.
all over again. And there's also a cool thing here is it's just Glittering Wish for life death, and life death. The life part is 1 green mana, makes all your lands into 1/1s. So if you don't have a mana dork out, you could do that, and then all your lands are tapping all the time for every spell. So it's really cool.
That seems reasonable.
That seems pretty reasonable. And like, something else that's really cool about this deck is that you can green sun Zenith. Of course, for the mana dork, so post board you can green sun Presented Sorin, which feels extremely satisfying for some reason. I don't know. It's just really cool.
I guess we got even more reason to play Cursed Totem now.
Yeah, Cursed Totem is a pretty cool sideboard card, and it also shuts this deck down. But like I said, this deck is not even remotely close to tier 1. This is more like a tier 3 strategy. You can compare this deck to
Mana Stretch.
Yeah, exactly. Compare this deck to Mana Stretch or something crazy like Allurin. It's a creature-based combo that doesn't particularly offer any kind of advantage over the other options. So only play this if you really enjoy it and don't expect to do very well. Alright. Well, that kind of wraps up our episode for now. Unless there's any questions from the chat. Julian, do you have any other points that I forgot to bring up?
While talking about sweet brews and Legacy, a friend of mine from Berlin piloted Legacy Bomberman to a 6-3 in Legacy. He only lost the last round against another friend of mine on Burn, and you can always randomly lose to Burn. So had he won that, he would have been 7-2 with Bomberman. And he played a build with, of course, lots of Trinket Mages and main deck Meek Stones and Grafdigger's Cage and whatever. So he got to steal a lot of game ones, at least from what I've heard. And the deck wasn't all that bad, even though it completely falls to a Nilrod. Like, it will never ever beat Nilrod the way he built it. He built it, I think, blue-white. And it played kind of like a Terminus deck as well. He played Terminus, I think he also played Stoneblades. Stoneforges and Tops and counterbalances. So in a way it was like what you are doing, but instead of the Top Sword combo, he was playing Bomberman, which of course is super flavorful and super cool. He even got to kill people just with the Bomberman, with the Auriok Salvages. He just attacked, and they were like, oh my god, what can I do?
hit him for 2. Can't abrupt the cannon. Yeah, sometimes you just need a Pitterfield Ox, man. Somebody asked... oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I still want to talk about for a short moment is slow play. Because I feel like this is the big elephant in the room, that even though we talked about it, people don't really talk enough about it. At the Ovinogeddon, I really made sure to actually keep track of how long my opponents are taking for their decisions. And when you're playing at a big tournament, it's rather easy because you get to see the clock and you can actually watch it and not have to rely on your own perception of time, which might be flawed. So every time my opponent took longer than 30 seconds for a decision, I told him to make his decision soon, or I would have to call a judge. And every time after 1 minute, I called a judge. And the judge was there by like 1 minute 30, and I told him, okay, my opponent now had 1 minute and 30 seconds to make a decision. And most opponents were like, yeah, but that's not slow. Like I think they didn't actually know what happened. They were always like very defensive about it. That's not slow play. That's not slow play. I think what they meant was, that's not stalling. I'm not stalling. I'm on the sky. But that doesn't change that you were playing slowly.
Yeah.
And the judge urged them to play faster. And I feel like it's gonna manifest in everybody's mind that playing slow is not okay, but it happens. I'm sure I've played slow, you've played slow, a lot of people have played slow.
For sure,
if somebody calls you out of it, it's not something personal, whatever, man. Just accept it, and if you really feel like you still have enough time left, tell the judge, okay, I think I've only been thinking for whatever, how many seconds. Like, there's no actual amount of time you can say, okay, this is slow play, this is not slow play. The only thing is, it's not about the board state. Because my opponent, I was playing the Elf's Mirror, he was telling me, wait, man, it's so complicated, I might be able to kill you, and he had so many different options. And I feel like I'm not going to make it easier for you. If you can't figure it out in a minute, I'm not going to give you 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, it is crazily complicated. It is insanely complicated sometimes, but that's not how the rules work. The rules don't say, oh, but if it's complicated, you get more time. That's not how the game works.
If you have 4 triggered abilities, you get extra time.
Yeah. If there's over 20 permanents, You have 30 more seconds. Like that's not.
Judge, we need a time extension. I just played my 10th lane.
Yeah. I mean that's not how the game works, but I mean it is insanely hard to make the right play sometimes in a situation like that when you're under time pressure. And people just don't want to mess up, you know. They don't want to do something they'll regret immediately. So they usually slow play without even noticing that they are slow playing, like you said. But this is so hard to enforce as well because of the amount of judges compared to the amount of players. And I feel like Legacy especially is pretty prone to slow play because there are so many crazy interactions that make it more complicated, where people just have to think more. And one tip I have for you, for like the viewers, like if you're worried that you might be slow playing, just practice. If you practice, you will start seeing patterns. You will start recognizing certain board states, interactions, and once you have seen it before, you don't need to think so long. So it'll get better if you just practice a lot, and that's definitely something that helps. Yeah. I recently got screwed because more than battle of wits, but that's another topic. Anyway, yeah. So
some other interactions that came up when I have Chixley, or when somebody has Chixley Jailer in play. That's about vintage now, and I cast Snapcaster Mage. I still get to flashback stuff. My opponent didn't believe me. I had to put a charge, and so for everybody who's ever been wondering how do Chixley Jailer and Snapcaster Mage interact. If Chixley Jailer is already on the battlefield, you get to Snapcaster stuff.
Yeah. If you Snapcaster targeting a spell and then they activate their Aether Vial for 2 and you don't respond, I think then you cannot flash back anymore. That's really that's a really weird scenario.
If the spell already has flashback, then you bring the next Chixley Jailer, it loses the flashback again. But, yeah. Another thing that was really complicated for my opponent to understand was he had several permanents in play, like several Moxen and Black Lotus, and then he cast Chain of Viper on his Black Lotus. He just taps a single island, Chain of Vapor, my Black Lotus. I say, okay. He puts the Lotus to his hand. So at this point, we already both agree that the Chain of Vapor is resolving.
Mm-hmm.
Now what he wants to do is sacrifice an Underground Sea to bounce something else, but he wants to tap the Underground Sea for mana, and that doesn't work. If you want to tap it for mana, and you know that because I think the interaction came up a lot for you in playing Storm, but people are so used to playing mana whenever they like, and you actually cannot play mana during the resolution of a spell or ability unless the spell or ability actually asks you to play mana. My opponent argued, if I mana leak your stuff and the mana leak resolves, you can pay mana. Yeah, but that's because the mana leak asks me to pay mana. Transmute Artifact asks me to pay mana. If the spell doesn't ask me to pay mana, I cannot pay mana, or even add it to my pool.
Exactly.
So the judge comes and rules in my favor, but that's very specific. But it also applies to Legacy when you're playing Storm and you want to increase the Storm count, do it right.
For sure, and also sometimes you have mana that is not really mana, like Death Red Shaman, and then if mana leak already resolved, you can't go oh, but hang on, I'm still going to remove a land to pay for that. No, it's already resolved. You can't do that. But, yeah. Anyway, somebody had a question for you. Do you think Blood Moon is good against elves?
It depends on what kind of deck is playing Blood Moon. I mean, if you're playing Panther, Storm, or Dragon Stompy, or whatever, and you are on the play, Blood Moon is really good. If you're on the draw, it's you might even want to side it out against when you're on the draw, when you're playing something like Dragon Stompy. If you're playing something like Painter, I would keep it in, because Painter usually goes somewhat longer than Dragon Stompy, so you can actually shut down Cradles and stuff. I mean, if you don't have something to bring in Dragon Stompy, you can still keep the Blood Moons. But other than that, elves can somewhat play around Blood Moon. It's always annoying, almost always when they have it, it's annoying to me. And at the Ovinogeddon, in round 2 of the main event, I actually played against Miracles, and he had Blood Moon. And I won the first game. I felt I could be winning the second game, but the Blood Moon caught me completely unexpected. I was totally unprepared for it, and I just lost the second game, even though I probably could have won it. And in the third game, he had Blood Moon once again, and 2 dried arbors went all the way.
Yeah, so what does he
So,
talk to me about the Blood Moon Dryad Arbor interaction then? Because that is not really an obvious
yeah, it's a
interaction.
green, it turns into a green mountain dryad. It stops being a forest dryad and it migrates towards the mountains because it likes climbing, and it turns into a mountain dryad.
It's a mountain 1/1 basically, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. Well, yeah, I think when you can clear the mana guys, for example, like miracles can actually do that with tournaments and stuff, then Blood Moon also becomes better. You can actually lock them
Yeah,
out.
it's even hard lock. If you terminus into Blood Moon and have counterbalance on the table, I can never ever cast Abrupt Decay. I mean, given that we have Reclamation Sage now, it's not the hard lock it used to be, but
But it's
it's
close.
really hard to come
It's
back from.
close, yeah. Alright. Okay, well, we've been going for a while, so I think we're gonna wrap up this episode here. And yeah, next week, hopefully, we'll have our buddy Great Wall back on the show. And hopefully your audio issues will be sorted as
Yeah,
well.
I'll make sure to
I
fix
mean,
those.
it went pretty well after we turned the camera off, but obviously that's not ideal. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Hopefully that will be better next week. So yeah, sorry for the issues on the beginning, and hope you enjoyed the show. If there's any questions you have or topics you would like us to discuss for the next show, feel free to tweet at any of us, and we'll try to fit them in there. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be back next week with Mark on the show as well, and hope to see you guys then. Thank you for watching.
All right.